The arena gleamed under the harsh light of twin suns, a massive structure carved from alien metals, soaring into the sky. Energy fields crackled and shimmered around the Colosseum, casting strange shadows on the faces of the countless spectators. They came from every corner of the galaxy, reptilian beings with scales reflecting the light, creatures with multiple eyes and armored exoskeletons, humanoids cloaked in mystery, and more. Each of them bore the distinctive marks of their homeworlds, and all of them were here for one purpose: to witness the interspecies dueling tournament that had become the most anticipated event in the galaxy. This tournament was more than entertainment. It was a means of power, a way for factions to settle disputes without mass bloodshed, to display their dominance without risking annihilation. The fierce Zerkoth, hulking beings with spiked armor and a reputation for brutality, were present in force, their warriors flexing and growling, ready to crush any who dared face them. The Rothan, a race of disciplined soldiers with a rigid hierarchy, marched in formation, their leaders standing tall, eyes cold and calculating. The Thrakens, known for their cunning and deceptive strategies, lounged on the sidelines, their bright yellow eyes watching every move, waiting for a chance to exploit any weakness. Amidst this chaos, a small figure emerged at the center of the arena. The crowd's noise surged for a moment, then turned to a low, rumbling laughter that spread like wildfire. Zeke, a warrior from the Luminaire species, stood alone. He was tiny compared to the towering figures around him, barely reaching the knee of a Zerkoth warrior. His skin was pale, almost translucent, with large, bright eyes that seemed more suited for a scholar than a fighter. Zeke's limbs were slender, his frame slight, and his overall presence appeared unimpressive in the extreme. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the arena. Alien commentators began their taunts, magnified by the Colosseum's audio systems. They mocked his small stature, his delicate build, his peaceful demeanor. The Luminaire were known throughout the galaxy as a pacifist species, more inclined toward diplomacy and science than combat. "Look at the tiny warrior!" shouted a Thraken, his voice dripping with disdain. "Did he come to fight or to beg for mercy?" A Rothan commander sneered. "I didn't know they allowed children into this tournament." Zeke stood quietly, seemingly unaffected by the jeers and insults. He looked calm, even serene, his eyes scanning the crowd without malice. His posture was steady, his gaze unwavering. But the taunts grew harsher. A Zerkoth warrior spat on the ground in front of him, proclaiming, "Go back to your libraries, Luminaire! This is a place for warriors, not weaklings!" Other contestants began to shout their derision, and the crowd followed suit. "Pacifist! Coward! Why waste time on this whelp?" they shouted, hoping to intimidate him, to make him leave before the first blow could be struck. Yet, amidst all this, Zeke remained still, a small figure in a sea of larger, more imposing beings. Then, a murmur started to ripple through the spectators. It was quiet at first, just a few voices here and there, but it grew in volume as the minutes passed. Whispers about a human who had arrived to participate, someone said to have come from a distant sector of the galaxy. Humans were rare in these parts, often regarded as unpredictable, but this one, they claimed, was different. No one knew for sure who this human was, but rumors flew fast and furious. "A human? Here? In this tournament?" Some questioned, bewildered. Others scoffed, dismissing the idea with a wave of their tentacled limbs. "Who would partner with such a creature?" they sneered, gesturing toward Zeke. Yet, a tension began to build in the air. Those who had heard the stories of a human warrior who had bested entire battalions, whose skills in combat were whispered about in dark corners of space, exchanged uneasy glances. The name Maria Sandoval surfaced again and again, carried on hushed voices. It was a name known to many, feared by most. Captain Maria Sandoval, a human with a reputation that had traveled far and wide, known for her strategic mind and lethal prowess. Could it be her? A Zerkoth warrior muttered, suddenly looking less certain. The audience shifted, waiting, wondering. Some began to look at Zeke with fresh eyes, connecting the dots, trying to understand why he, of all creatures, would be here. And then, as if on cue, A loud blast from the Colosseum's horns signaled the beginning of the tournament. But the whispers didn't stop. Instead, they grew louder, more insistent. Who was this human? Was she really coming? And what did she have to do with the diminutive warrior standing alone at the center of the arena? For a moment, it seemed like everything paused, a collective breath held by every being present, waiting for the next move, for the truth behind the rumors to be revealed. And as the anticipation reached its peak, Zeke's expression softened just slightly, as if he knew something they did not, as if he was waiting for someone to arrive who would change everything. The first match was announced, and Zeke found himself facing a Rothan warrior named Thorn, a towering figure of muscle and armor, with a reputation for brute strength. Thorn moved to the center of the arena, radiating confidence. He looked down at Zeke, eyes full of disdain, a sneer forming on his lips. To him, this was no fight, it was a formality, an easy win. The audience sensed his confidence, and the betting began immediately. Almost every wager was placed against the small Luminaire warrior. The crowd laughed, their jeers mixing with the hum of the energy fields around the arena. Thorn lunged forward with a roar, his massive arms swinging in powerful arcs, aimed to end the match in a single blow. But Zeke was ready. With a fluid movement, he ducked under Thorn's fist, his small frame moving with an agility that seemed almost impossible. He darted to the side, slipping away before Thorn could react, leaving the larger warrior off balance. Thorn's expression shifted from arrogance to irritation. He charged again, faster this time, throwing a series of rapid punches. Zeke dodged each one with minimal effort, his movements sharp and precise. The laughter in the arena began to falter, replaced by murmurs of confusion. The Rothan was known for his strength, his ability to overwhelm opponents quickly, but Zeke was proving to be an unexpected challenge. He wasn't trying to overpower Thorn, he was evading him, letting the larger warrior tire himself out. The crowd started to notice that Zeke's dodges weren't random. Each movement was calculated, each step purposeful. He was drawing Thorn into a pattern, forcing him into overextending his reach. Then Zeke struck. It was quick, almost too fast to follow. A sharp jab to Thorn's side, right between the plates of his armor, then a swift kick to the back of his knee. Thorn stumbled, his confidence shaken. The crowd gasped. Zeke had found an opening, using his eskrima training to target vulnerable points with precision. It wasn't strength he was using, but skill and intelligence. Thorn roared in frustration, swinging wildly, but Zeke was already out of reach, his eyes focused, his stance ready for the next move. The arena's energy shifted. What had begun as a joke, a spectacle for amusement, was turning into a real contest. The audience leaned forward, their mocking grins fading. They watched closely now, curiosity replacing derision. Zeke continued to move with fluid grace, exploiting every aspect of the environment, the uneven terrain, the obstacles scattered throughout the arena. He vaulted over a low wall, using it to propel himself into a spin, landing another strike on Thorn's exposed shoulder. Thorn grunted in pain, his movements becoming sluggish. Zeke kept his distance, always just out of reach, his strikes never wasting energy. He was playing a different game, one that didn't rely on brute force. He maneuvered Thorn toward a cluster of metallic pillars, then darted between them, using their positions to restrict Thorn's larger movements. Thorn, in his frustration, charged straight ahead, colliding with a pillar. Zeke seized the opportunity, delivering a rapid series of blows to Thorn's legs and arms, each one targeted at a joint, a weak spot. The crowd fell silent, stunned. The once laughing spectators were now watching with wide eyes. Zeke was winning. The tiny warrior who had been the butt of their jokes was systematically dismantling one of the tournament's strongest contenders. They could see now that this wasn't luck or chance. Zeke had been trained, honed into a fighter with a unique style that combined speed, precision, and strategy. He was using his size to his advantage, making it difficult for Thorn to land a single blow. Thorn's face twisted with rage and humiliation. He swung wildly, desperation evident in every move. Zeke dodged, slipped under his arm, and delivered a final, decisive strike to the back of Thorn's knee, sending the giant warrior crashing to the ground. A moment of disbelief hung in the air before the referee's voice boomed across the arena, declaring Zeke the winner. Whispers spread through the crowd like a ripple in still water. What had they just witnessed? This tiny warrior, once a figure of ridicule, had defeated a formidable opponent with skill and grace. The spectators began to murmur among themselves, trying to reconcile what they had seen with their preconceived notions of power and combat. Some started to remember the rumors about the human woman, Maria Sandoval. They looked toward Zeke, now standing with a quiet dignity, and realized there was more to his story than they had imagined. Attention turned to Maria, who watched from the sidelines with a calm, knowing expression. The connection between her and Zeke was undeniable now. The aliens in the crowd began to understand that this human had trained Zeke, had somehow transformed him from a pacifist into a warrior. The laughter had stopped completely, replaced by a new respect, a cautious admiration for what had just unfolded. Zeke stepped into the arena again, this time to face a Thraken's warrior named Roth, infamous for his combination of brute strength and cunning strategies. Roth was a towering figure with a predatory gaze, his muscles rippling beneath his scaled skin. Unlike Thorn, Roth did not underestimate his opponent. He had seen the first match, and knew Zeke was not to be taken lightly. He circled Zeke slowly, studying him, waiting for the right moment to strike. The tension in the arena was palpable. The audience leaned in, sensing that this battle would be different. Zeke, though more confident now, felt the weight of Roth's eyes on him, analyzing his every move. He knew this opponent was smarter, more dangerous, and that the tricks he had used before might not work this time. Roth struck suddenly, a blur of motion, and Zeke narrowly dodged, feeling the rush of air as the blow missed him by inches. He countered with a swift strike of his own, but Roth was ready, deflecting the blow with ease. For the first time, Zeke felt a sting of pain as Roth's fist connected with his side, a calculated hit designed to weaken him slowly. Maria watched from the sidelines, her expression calm and focused. She gave subtle signals, small gestures that only Zeke would understand, guiding him on when to attack and when to hold back. Zeke absorbed her guidance, adjusting his stance, changing his approach. He began to mix his movements, combining the fluidity of Eskrima with evasive maneuvers, using his smaller size to his advantage once more. But Roth was relentless, pressing the attack, testing Zeke's defenses, and probing for any signs of weakness. Zeke realized that this fight required more than just speed and agility. He needed to adapt, to anticipate Roth's moves, to think several steps ahead. He drew upon Maria's teachings, recalling her words about exploiting an opponent's arrogance and overconfidence. He began to feign vulnerability, deliberately leaving small openings that seemed inviting. Roth, sensing an opportunity, lunged forward with a powerful strike aimed at Zeke's head. But Zeke had been waiting for this. In a swift, unexpected move, he sidestepped, using Roth's momentum against him, and delivered a precise blow to a nerve cluster on Roth's arm. Roth staggered, his arm momentarily numb, surprise flickering in his eyes. The crowd gasped, their skepticism turning into cautious admiration. Zeke pressed the advantage, using more advanced Eskrima techniques that Maria had taught him, moves that focused on disarming and disabling an opponent. He ducked and weaved, each movement fluid and purposeful, attacking with a combination of speed and precision that kept Roth on the defensive. The Thraken's warrior grew frustrated, his attacks becoming more erratic, his composure cracking under the pressure. Zeke remained focused, studying his opponent, recognizing the signs of fatigue, the cracks in Roth's strategy. He knew he had to end this soon before Roth regained his footing. With a burst of speed, he closed the distance, striking low at Roth's knees, causing the giant warrior to stumble backward. Seizing the moment, Zeke executed a maneuver he had been practicing tirelessly, an advanced disarm move that required perfect timing. He locked Roth's arm, twisted, and with a swift motion, brought the Thraken's warrior crashing to the ground. The arena went silent for a moment, stunned by the suddenness of the move. Then, as Roth lay incapacitated, unable to continue the fight, the referee declared Zeke the victor. The silence broke into a wave of applause, louder than before. The crowd erupted into cheers, their perception of Zeke changing with every match. They no longer saw him as a joke, but as a contender who had proven himself twice now against formidable foes. There was an undeniable shift in the energy of the arena. The aliens who had mocked Zeke began to murmur amongst themselves, acknowledging his skill and bravery. They could see that he had not just been trained but transformed, his once small stature now seen as an asset rather than a weakness. Even the alien warriors who had dismissed him earlier began to watch him with a newfound respect. They recognized the influence of Maria Sandoval in his fighting style, the way he seamlessly integrated human tactics with his natural abilities. A few of the alien commanders nodded to each other, silently acknowledging the human's prowess in molding a warrior out of one they had thought incapable. After the match, a group of warriors from different factions, including some who had openly mocked Zeke earlier, approached him. Their postures were no longer arrogant, their faces less condescending. One of them, a Zerkoth who had sneered at him before, now extended a tentative congratulations. "You fight well, Luminar," he said, his tone grudgingly respectful. Others nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with a mix of surprise and admiration. They began to speak less of Zeke as a joke and more of him as a warrior who had earned his place in the tournament. Zeke nodded in acknowledgement, his face calm but his eyes reflecting the determination and spirit that had brought him this far. He knew he still had battles ahead, but with each round, his confidence grew, his belief in himself strengthened by Maria's unwavering guidance and the hard-won respect of those around him. The final round was announced, and the atmosphere in the arena grew thick with anticipation. Every spectator leaned forward, eyes fixed on the combatants who would soon face off in the ultimate test of skill and strength. Zeke stood alone at one end of the arena, calm but aware of the enormity of the challenge before him. His opponent, the reigning champion, stepped forward, a massive Zerkoth warrior named Korik, renowned for his ferocity and unmatched combat experience. Korik's presence alone was enough to send a ripple of unease through the crowd. He towered over Zeke, his frame covered in battle scars, his eyes cold and unyielding. The tension was palpable. Korik had dominated the tournament for years, feared by all who faced him. The spectators whispered among themselves, speculating whether the tiny Luminar warrior could possibly stand a chance against such a formidable foe. The stakes had never been higher. This battle was not just for the championship but for the respect and recognition that Zeke had fought so hard to earn. Even those who had come to respect him in the earlier rounds watched with bated breath, unsure of how this match would unfold. Korik did not waste time. As soon as the signal was given, he launched himself forward, his enormous fist swinging with bone-crushing force. Zeke moved swiftly, narrowly avoiding the initial onslaught. He knew he couldn't afford to engage Korik head-on. The Zerkoth's strength was too great, his reach too long. Instead, Zeke danced around him, staying light on his feet, keeping just out of reach. He focused on every lesson Maria had drilled into him: patience, precision, and using his opponent's strength against them. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Zeke maneuvered around the larger warrior, dodging strikes that could shatter stone. Korik, irritated by Zeke's agility, pressed harder, his attacks becoming more aggressive. Zeke felt the air move around him as Korik's blows missed by mere inches. One mistimed dodge and Zeke would be down, but he remained focused, his mind calculating every move. He looked to Maria, who watched from the sidelines with a calm intensity, her eyes locked on his every move. Her silent encouragement fueled his resolve. Korik grew frustrated, his movements becoming less measured, more desperate to land a decisive blow. Zeke saw an opening, a brief moment where Korik's guard was down. He moved in quickly, striking at a vulnerable spot on Korik's side, just beneath the rib cage. Korik grunted but remained unfazed, retaliating with a powerful backhand that Zeke barely avoided. The crowd gasped at the close call, sensing how precariously balanced the fight had become. Zeke knew he needed more than speed. He had to force Korik into a mistake. He began to play a dangerous game, baiting Korik with feints, luring him into overcommitting. With each dodge and counter, he used the arena's environment to his advantage, weaving through obstacles, using pillars and barriers to block Corac's line of sight, to tire him out. He could feel the strain in his own muscles, the fatigue setting in, but he pushed it aside. This was his moment, and he would not let it slip away. Corac charged, a burst of raw fury and power. Zeke sidestepped just in time, landing a sharp kick to the back of Corac's knee. The giant stumbled but did not fall. He roared in anger, swinging wildly, and for a moment Zeke saw the opening he had been waiting for. He darted forward, delivering a series of rapid strikes to Corac's joints, each one targeted with pinpoint accuracy. Corac's movements slowed, his breath coming in heavy gasps. But Corac wasn't done. With a roar, he swung his arm in a wide arc, catching Zeke off guard and sending him sprawling to the ground. The crowd gasped, thinking it was over. Maria's eyes widened slightly, but she remained calm, her trust in Zeke unwavering. Zeke scrambled to his feet, pain shooting through his side, but his determination never wavered. He knew he had to end this soon. He had to dig deeper, find the strength within himself that Maria had always believed he had. Corac advanced, sensing victory, but Zeke held his ground, waiting for the right moment. As Corac raised his arm for a final, crushing blow, Zeke lunged forward with all the speed he could muster, aiming directly for Corac's exposed throat. It was a risky move, but it was his only chance. His fist connected with a precise, powerful strike, and Corac staggered back, stunned, clutching his throat, gasping for air. The crowd fell silent, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Corac swayed on his feet, his massive frame beginning to crumble. Zeke pressed on, delivering a final, decisive blow to the side of Corac's head. The champion fell to his knees, then collapsed to the ground, unable to continue. The referee's voice rang out, declaring Zeke the winner. For a heartbeat, the arena remained in stunned silence. Then, it erupted into thunderous applause. The cheers were deafening, a roar of approval that echoed through the vast Colosseum. The once dismissive spectators were now on their feet, shouting Zeke's name, celebrating the tiny warrior who had proven them all wrong. They saw not just a luminaire but a warrior who had shown extraordinary courage, skill, and determination. As Zeke stood there, catching his breath, he felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. He had won not just the tournament, but the respect of an entire galaxy. Maria approached him, a rare smile touching her lips. She nodded, a silent acknowledgement of all they had achieved together. The alien factions came forward, one by one, to congratulate Zeke, to acknowledge his warrior status. They also recognized Maria's role in his transformation, the human who had seen potential where others had seen none. In that moment, it became clear to all that true strength was not about size or appearance.